1770. Across the river behind me, somewhere close by on the shores of Taylor Avenue at the mouth of Benson Creek, is where Stephen Frank, an explorer with the McAfee brothers and Hancock Lee, was killed by a surprise attack of natives while attempting to cross a ford in the river in the year 1780. For years after, the area where we sit was known for a time as Frank's Ford and would later be recognized and established by the Virginia legislature as Frankfort on October 6, 1786. Of course, we have the bridge histories, where Frankfort's first chain suspension bridge was built in 1816 at St. Clair, where various covered bridges were built at both St. Clair and Broadway, and where today we have a collection of very important historic truss bridges that collectively make our town historically significant in the eyes of the world. And one of them is in very serious danger of being lost to history for good. Those are the stories we all know and recognize, but there are other stories. As a descendant of many of Frankfort's first families, I think of something different when I stand here. Something far more personal than the lore of Frankfort, Franklin County, and Kentucky history, as I'm sure some of you do as well. As I stand here on the banks of the Kentucky, I think of my fifth grade uncle, Captain John Alexander Holton, the son of a Maryland Navy captain in the Revolutionary War. Captain Holton was one of the 13 survivors of the massacre at the Battle of River Raisin in the War of 1812, who at the age of about 18 began navigating flatboats down the Kentucky River to New Orleans as early as 1804, riding a horseback through the heavily populated native territories of Tennessee. Captain Holton would later worked for Philip Swigert and Colonel William McKee's Steamboat Company, making regular trips to Louisville, New Orleans, and sometimes Missouri. Holton also brought the second round of cholera to Frankfort aboard his steamboat, which later killed Governor Stonehammer Metcalf. He was part of the group that brought Daniel and Rebecca Boone's remains back to Frankfort from Missouri and returned the remains of the Franklin County dead to Frankfort from both River Raisin and the Mexican-American War, including the body of his own boss, Colonel William McKee. Most of those men are now buried at the State Mound at the Frankfort Cemetery. If any of you watched Mrs. Nicole Conkle's presentation Wednesday night on archaeology in the capital city, the doll pictured with me at the Kentucky Historical Society, which was made in the likeness of my fourth great-grandmother, Mariah Holton Luckett, the sister of Captain Holton, was brought to Frankfort from New Orleans aboard the Robert E. Lee steamboat by Steamboat Captain John W. Cannon, whose daughter had been the best childhood friend of my grandmother's aunt. In fact, I have a silver spoon with M. Luckett inscribed on the handle from when Mariah owned and operated the Mansion House, the 100-room hotel formerly at the location of the McClure Building. All of that comes to mind for me when I stand here tonight. As you can see, there are general histories and there are personal histories. There are a multitude of reasons why each of us engage in the practice of historic preservation. To visitors of Frankfort, where we sit tonight may be nothing more than a beautiful place of nature in a quaint historic town. To those who know Frankfort's history, this place has greater meaning. And to those of us who descend from some of these history makers, it has even greater meaning still. A sense of place, a sense of time, a sense of family, a sense of community, a sense of humility, and yes, a sense of stewardship. One needs to look no further for examples of what a sense of place or community in a particular time can provide a certain people than reading Sheila Mason Burton's Community Memories, Doug Boyd's Crawfish Bottom, Nash Cox's and Sally Lanham's Portrait of Early Families, or Mina Jet Darnell's Happy Days at Jet, or Dr. E.E. Underwood's A Brief History of Colored Churches in Frankfort, written in 1906. There are lots more books out there about Frankfort history that tell the same tale, that a sense of place, time, and community in Frankfort matters. The Franklin County Trust was formed by a group of locals in 1974 who, like myself, either descended from original Frankfort families, such as Major General Zach Softly, a cousin, or who fell in love with Frankfort history or architecture. They formed the trust in order to save Glen Willis, the house on Wilkerson Boulevard built in 1815 by Willis Atwell Lee on land given to him by his uncle, Hancock Lee, who founded and named Leestown. Since that start, the trust has helped save landmarks such as the T.N. Sullivan Log House from Peaks Mill, built circa 1810, which now sits atop Fort Hill. The historic Mason's Grocery, a longtime gathering place in the Black community of South Frankfort, now occupied by the Franklin County Women and Family Shelter. and most recently the 1894 First Corinthian Missionary Baptist Church Parsonage, formerly the home of Reverend Charles N. King, the first African American elected to high office in both the Southern Baptist Convention and the Kentucky Baptist Convention, which, like the Sullivan House, we literally had to pick up and move it to a new location. We've also contributed over the years to projects like the War Mothers Memorial Bridge at Capitol Avenue, the old State Capitol Fountain, and the Green Hill Cemetery's African American Civil War Soldiers Military Monument. Lately, we've taken more of a robust and vigorous policy advocacy approach, advocating for the creation of a new historic preservation officer for the city of Frankfort, advocating for better protections in the county to prevent more situations like the completely unnecessary tragedy of the Blanton Crutcher House in Millville, strengthening the role and ability of the Architectural Review Board, getting more houses and neighborhoods on the National Register, bringing attention to the various types of cultural resources such as dry-laid stone walls and archaeological sites, getting more historic interpretation in our park system, getting a separate historic preservation component added to the city-county comprehensive plan, advocating for a stronger focus on Black and minorities history in Frankfort, and yes, saving the Broadway Bridge. This year, in February, this board adopted a very aggressive agenda. Number one, invest $100,000 of our funds to increase earnings and protect the endowment passed to us from Mrs. Moore and the founders. Number two, increase membership to 100 members or more. Number three, advocate for the preservation of the Broadway Bridge. Number four, save the First Corinthian Missionary Baptist Church parsonage by moving it to a new location. Number five, participate in city and county planning opportunities to include the comprehensive plan, parks plan, preservation plan, downtown master plan, and more. Number six, produce a newsletter for membership. Number seven, present the Martha Moore Awards for historic preservation. Number eight, promote the Franklin 5 Best Opportunities for Historic Preservation in Frankfort and Franklin County annually instead of every 5 years. Number nine, establish a plaque program for sale. And number 10, advocate for preservation policies in the county. I am pleased to say that just in 3 months since passing that annual agenda, and after tonight, we will have accomplished 7 of those 10 goals, and are well positioned to accomplish them all by the year's end. I have to thank some of the hardest working people I know, and I wake up every day thankful to have the board members I do. So I have to thank my fellow board directors, Kevin, Jen, Catherine, Mike, Eric, and Natalie, and now Vicki. Thank you all for all of your very hard volunteer work that you do for the Trust, for Frankfort, Franklin County, and in the name of historic preservation. You have absolutely no idea how hard many of them worked on moving the First Corinthian parsonage and are still working to finish that project, particularly our Vice President, Kevin Breek, and his crew at KB Construction. And to our treasurer and resident architect, Jen Williamson, for helping to coordinate and navigate the massive logistical situation that had to work to a T to be pulled off successfully. Past President Natalie Wilkerson and Director Eric Whisman also pulled some heavy weight on that project. Of course, every project has hit some snags, and so I have to continue to give a major thanks to Trust member Nicole Conkle, our friendly neighborhood archaeologist, for providing technical archaeological services for us when we discovered a 10-foot wide brick cistern where the load-bearing corner of the house was to go the week before the first scheduled move in February. Nicole, Kevin, and Jen braved the very cold weather and worked tirelessly until the situation was remediated. So everyone, if you're listening, we as preservationists don't just ask these untimely preservation tasks of you, we certainly do them ourselves. And no building has its historic significance without historical context, so special thanks to Trust member Angela Fitzpatrick for providing research on several of our projects, but especially the First Corinthian parsonage. This work does not come without its costs. We are a nonprofit, so loss is expected, but there are other wonderful human beings in this world who put their own time, energy, and money into restoring, rehabilitating, and revitalizing historic properties. And that is one of the 2 main reasons we are here tonight, to recognize those in our community, whether individuals, businesses, organizations, or agencies that have successfully restored, rehabilitated, or revitalized a historic property in Franklin County. Sit tight, and we will get to that later in our program. As you all know, the month of May is National Historic Preservation Month, and historic preservation is intimately connected to public history. The more people know about the history of a building, structure, artifact, or place, the more they will care about it and want to protect it. In the last 70 years, downtown Frankfort has lost over half of its entire city blocks due to demolition, not because any of them needed to be torn down, but because someone thought their idea for what could go there was more valuable in those spaces than the community and historic structures that then occupied them. South Frankfort, brick for brick, now has far more historic structures than the old city on the north side of the river. That is a travesty. Also, in the modern world of environmental awareness, there is no greener building than the one that is already built. So last October or November, when myself and then Commissioner Eric Whisman were working on creating the idea for the position of Historic Preservation Officer for the city, we conceived of a week of celebrating historic preservation and Frankfort history, our cultural heritage, and we came up with Frankfort Heritage Week. We had lots of plans for Heritage Week that didn't turn out back then, so I picked it up in late January and reached out to Robin Antonucci with the Tourist Commission. Robin and I had our first meeting in February. Initially, I explained the reason I thought Frankfort needed a Heritage Week. After all, we've spent millions of dollars crowning ourselves the bourbon capital of the world, a historic small town, and the historic capital city. And the state has made Frankfort the capital of Kentucky history, with the Kentucky Historical Society, Libraries and Archives, the Kentucky Heritage Council, and Division of Historic Properties. So it was time for all of us to embrace our identity and to put some collective effort into promoting these assets. Originally, we had planned to have no more than one event per day, but as organizations got wind of what we were doing, they were all eager to participate and join in and help promote preservation in Frankfort's history. So 7 events with 5 organizations quickly turned into 21 events with over 20 organizations, agencies, businesses, and nonprofits working in tandem with no central budget to pull this off. I'm still amazed at some of the incredible events that occurred this week. This week kicked off with the virtual unveiling of the renovation at the Capital City Museum. I know we're all eager to go see everything up close when the museum reopens in the next few weeks. Paul Sawyer Public Library and the Kentucky Historical Society pulled off an exceptional roundtable discussion of some of Frankfort's most cherished living local authors. Layne Bean with the Finance Cabinet gave 3 wonderful tours of 3 important buildings. Nick Laraquente took us down the exciting and interesting road of bourbon archaeology. And Vicki Bierenberg and Nicole Conkle gave highly enjoyable presentations on architectural design and public archaeology in the capital city. There were 2 events that serendipitously coincided with Frankfort Heritage Week. KSU's 135th anniversary on May 18th, where they released a new book on the institution's history, and the 60th anniversary of the building of Kentucky's Capitals, or the Kentucky Capitals floral clock. And quite humbling, Cable 10 went all out, going through the plant board's vaults to resurrect historic programming from Frank Sauer, John Gray's historic Frankfort seminars, which sparked a movement in the 90s, Frankfort Heritage Press, the Russ Hatter walking tours, and more. And I'm happy to announce that Cable 10 will be uploading all of its historic programming to its YouTube page so that all of that history is accessible to all of us year-round. And so Robin and the Tourist Commission can promote Frankfort history with those videos. Who knows, maybe the next Russ Hatter will run across those videos on YouTube and be inspired to pick up the mantle of Frankfort history. Just on Frankfort Heritage Week Facebook page, we've reached over 12,700 people and had over 2,500 unique engagements with the post for Frankfort Heritage Week, and had no budget for organizing and advertising. I have no idea the stats from the other organizations that pushed all of the posts and events, but if we did this with no budget during a pandemic, imagine what we could do next year with a budget, more people, in person, more preparation, and more advertising. If not for historic preservation or public history, this year was a great exercise in coalition building and working together. I must take a moment to thank some incredibly hardworking people and organizations who, without them, this week would not have been all that it was, and I greatly apologize if I leave anyone off. The week involved so many people at so many organizations. Robin Antonucci and her staff at the Franklin County Tourist and Convention Commission, Mayor Layne Wilkerson, Vicki Bierenberg, Nicole Conkle, Jordan Miller, Blair Hecker, and the Architectural Review Board with the City of Frankfort, Judge Executive Houston Wells, Deputy Judge Executive Tamber Harrod, with the Franklin County Fiscal Court, Russ Kennedy, Scott Alvey, Jessica Stavros, Megan Souter, Carol Easterly, Stuart Sanders, Greg Hardison, and the staff at the Kentucky Historical Society, Kayla Smith with Downtown Frankfort Inc., Tish Shade and Susie Burgess with the Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce, Penny Peevler, Becky Tippett, Kelly Everman, Betty Barr, Russ Hatter with the Capital City Museum, Patty Peevler and Sarah Garner with the Frankfort Cemetery, Catherine Dutton Mitchell, Kathy Lindsay, David Columbia, and the staff at Frankfort Plant Board, Cable 10, and Around 10, Carol Mitchell and Delana Bean with the Kentucky Division of Historic Properties, Tim Deppenbrock and Ryan Hicks with the Kentucky Department of Facilities and Support Services, Sonia Sanders and Clara Stamps at Kentucky State University, Sarah Elliott and her staff at Liberty Hall Historic Sites, Craig Potts and Kitty Dugood with the Kentucky Heritage Council, Frankfort authors Sheila Mason Burton, Richard Taylor, Nikki Hughes, Nash Cox, Sally Lanham, and Doug Boyd, my cousin Laura Penn for providing sound equipment this evening. A major thanks to graphic artist Matt Ellis for designing the beautiful Frankfort Heritage Week logo at the very last minute. And lastly, Tim Lusher at Sig Lusher for providing a space for us to get to gather afterward tonight. So please give everyone a big round of applause on making the first ever Frankfort Heritage Week a success. Now I have the distinct honor to introduce our first guest speaker. Early in April, in preparation for National Historic Preservation Month, Ms. Vicki Bierenberg prepared a proclamation for the mayor to declare the month of May as Historic Preservation Month and May 16th through the 22nd as Heritage Week. Mayor Wilkerson signed the proclamation the last week of April and officially began Historic Preservation Month. Please welcome Mayor Layne Wilkerson with the City of Frankfort as he reads his proclamation and expresses some thoughts on the reasons we're here tonight.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for being here, friends and neighbors. It's good to see everyone. And I am here as mayor of the city of Frankfort, representing the city, but I must say it's a pleasure. For those of you that don't know, I used to be board member of the Franklin County Trust for Historic Preservation, former past president, and my wife Natalie is also a board member and former past president. So it's an organization that's near and dear to our hearts. And Martha, we've come a long way here, haven't we? It's on the top floor of the Whitaker Bank building giving these awards, meeting once a year. Good work. And I want to say also to the trust, congratulations on the successful resolution of the 300 Murray building and the movement of the First Corinthian parsonage. That 300 Murray building, I was involved in that as well, and that we had to work hard to get that building preserved, and we had to work with the city, and now seeing it on the other side, it's interesting. We had to convince a lot of people that they should not demolish that building, and now we see it. It's back on the tax rolls. It's useful to another nonprofit, the Franklin County Women and Family Shelter, and that's a successful project. And also the city won a grant from the U.S. Conference of Mayors. It was a pretty significant award, $75,000. Actually, Franklin County Women and Family Shelter received it with the city. But because of that building, because of what we did. So it's funny how it all worked out there. Anyway, I'm here to read the proclamation. So please allow me to read it because I didn't memorize it. To all to whom these presents shall come, whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for economic development, sustainability, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character, and whereas historic preservation is relevant to communities across the Commonwealth and nation for Americans of all ages, walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds. And whereas it is important to celebrate, honor, and promote Frankfort's heritage, both tangible and intangible, to increase community pride, identity, and sense of place for current and future residents of our great city. And whereas the Frankfort community continues to demonstrate its commitment to preservation as it grows and develops through the protection of its historic neighborhoods, public outreach for programs for citizens, the identification, designation, and rehabilitation of historic properties, and by partnering with the National Park Service and the Kentucky Heritage Council through the Certified Local Government Program. Now therefore, I, Layne Wilkerson, Mayor of the City of Frankfort, Kentucky, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2021 as Historic Preservation Month and May 16th to the 22nd as Frankfort Heritage Week. I'll present this to John Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. We really appreciate your support. After Mayor Wilkerson issued his proclamation, I sent it to Judge Wells with the fiscal court to ask if he would be willing to issue a similar proclamation. In lightning speed, Deputy Judge Herod responded with a signed identical proclamation from Judge Executive Wells, so we greatly appreciate the county's acknowledgement of the importance of historic preservation and its support of Heritage Week. Please welcome Judge Executive Huston Wells.
I see Mr. Carlton's mother back there in the back. Hey, Sandra, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
I know you're proud.
Yes, I am.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight on this summer evening in May. Just think last week, if we go back to last week, we were thinking, will summer ever get here? Will we ever get spring? We're almost in a winter type phase. So anyway, we're here. It's hot. Martha Moore, it's good to see you. I was probably 5 years old when I first met you, came out to your farm, and for years I was out to your farm, your area, the creek, and enjoyed the creek so much. And virtually, you helped raise me. Thank you. Thank you. We won't go into detail about what you know about me, but anyway, that's another story. As I stand here tonight, I'm going to talk about Franklin County itself, and Franklin County is in favor of preserving areas. We have been, we have a very positive history, even though there is some negative history, but there is positive history. So I'm also, as I move along tonight, I'm going to read you the properties that are located in Franklin County, which probably most of you do not know exist, that are listed on the register. And then I'm going to challenge you. And so listen for this challenge, John. All right, before I begin, I cannot help to not recognize Mr. Historian, John, you mentioned it in your speech, Russ Hatter. Russ, you mean so much to this community, and you're going to have to make sure that you put all this information down in writing, so people like John will have it in another time. So if you would stand, I'd really like for all of us to give a round of applause and a big thank you to Russ Hatter. You're awesome, Russ. Thank you so much. Russ, you can attest to this. In the early 2000s, and this is a positive example of Franklin County government at work, there were two of us, Jill Robinson and myself, that were on the fiscal court. There's a building right next to the fiscal court building, which we bought from the State Journal. Russ, and you know where I'm going with that. It's called the Goodman Building. The majority members on the fiscal court wanted to tear that building down and make two parking spaces. We didn't do it. Jill and I fought hard against that. It was the right thing to do. Russ, you came and talked to us about it. You remember all that discussion about it. So the county can do things right, and the county should do things right. And we should work together with the city, and all of us together, because preservation of our history is what we should all be about. It really should be what we're about. So let me start with this, and then I challenge you to see if you remember these or know about these, because there's 21 properties on here that are on the historic list that you may or may not know about. And when I'm finished reading them, I will say to you, and to you, John, and to all of us, this is a challenge. We should have a lot more than this. This should just be the beginning. Colonel R.T.P. Allen House, located on Johnson Road, Big Eddy. Archaeological Site 15, 26, Harvey Land. Archaeological Site 1552 on Harvey Land. Arrowhead, 1335 Canty Way. Blanton Crutcher Farm, which we lost. Bridgeport School, 555 Bridgeport Road. Chapel on the Forks, 3984 Georgetown Road. The Giltner Holt House, 335 Holt Lane. Hagen Farm, 1472 Bedford Road. Andrew Hearn Log House and Farm, 3 miles southwest of Jet on Hanley Lane. Old Stone Tavern, 1775 Old Leestown Road. Julian Farm, 1915 Louisville Road. Charles Patterson House, 1760 Schweitzer Road. Penn Marshall House, 920 Stony Creek. Scotland, 2080-2090 Versailles Road. George T. Stagg Distillery, 1001 Wilson Boulevard. Stewart Home School, 4200 Lawrenceburg Road. Schweitzer Covered Bridge, Jones Lane at North Fork Elkhorn. Robert Todd Summer Home off Leestown Road. Andrew Trumbo Log House off Glens Creek Road. Weehawken, one Weehawken. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 21 properties that I mentioned. There should be at least 42. There should be at least 21 more. And I know personally of one that's in my family in Woodlake. Russ, and you and I have talked about Bel Air in Woodlake. It was built in 1850, and it's being lived in right now. 400 acres there. So I challenge you. I say to you, let's get this done. Let's do better. So even more, this is another challenge. I've had a meeting with the mayor's wife, and we've had a very good discussion about what we can do to encourage more historic properties and what can we do to preserve historic properties. So here's a challenge, here's a thought, and it's a discussion point to start with. It is my belief that especially in the unincorporated areas of Franklin County, now remember, people living in the county think a little differently. I'm just saying that. It is what it is. It is what it is. So let's offer a carrot and not just a stick. Let's offer a 2% tax rebate on historic properties and say, okay, you use that money from that rebate, you use that towards developing that property and put it back into the historic property itself. There's a carrot, okay? So I challenge you, I challenge all of you all, let's get together and let's look for ways that we can preserve property, but reward people for preserving property and not punish them, okay? So I think we can do that. I hope we can do that. Thank you for listening to me tonight, and thank you for your leadership, and God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Wells, and challenge accepted. We are actually working on several projects right now. In fact, we were just talking about getting all of Bridgeport neighborhood on the National Register. So, that in itself would bring how many properties, Eric? About 30 properties into a National Register district. So anyway, thank you, Judge Wells, for your support, and we shall talk soon. One of the most enthusiastic supporters of Frankfort Heritage Week has been the Kentucky Historical Society. Around early to mid-April, after working with Megan Souter and Carol Easterly on KHS's participation, Deputy Director Jessica Stavros reached out to me to set up a meeting. She wanted to know how whatever KHS could do to participate in or help promote Frankfort Heritage Week. Since then, we have had several talks about how KHS, the city, the county, and all of the local organizations need to work together more closely to coordinate the promotion of historic preservation in the capital city and to promote and encourage education on Frankfort and Franklin County's history. After all, Frankfort and Franklin County history is Kentucky history, and vice versa. So I greatly appreciate this new partnership and coalition with the Kentucky Historical Society. Please welcome Kentucky Historical Society Executive Director Scott Alvey.
Well, thank you, John. After that, man, that's going to be a tough one to follow. As John was speaking, actually, a lot of the things I thought, I got prepared remarks for this, and he covered a lot of them. But what I do want to say a little bit is, first of all, let me thank my staff, Jessica in the back, Megan and Julie. Folks, you all know how this works. They make all the magic happen on bringing history to life and making access to Kentucky history around here. And they're members of the Frankfort community, so I know that it was a very easy way for us to agree to be part of this partnership. A big part, and I also feel kind of intimidated because you all are history advocates. You wouldn't be here if you weren't a history advocate, but that's what we get to do for our day jobs. We go out there and advocate for history. So to kind of summarize a little bit, I think what John was saying, I'm gonna try to leave you with 3 points. Maybe not quite the challenge that the judge left with us, but I'm gonna give you 3 things to maybe think about when you go out and send you out to be advocates for Kentucky history. Because when we have weeks like we had this week or months like we had this month, that's great. It raises awareness about the importance of history, the importance of the historic properties that we have, the importance of historic preservation, but it's not done. It's a daily proposition that we have to have, and that we have to go out and understand that history is important. History is relevant. Kentucky history is relevant. Frankfort history is relevant. And so we have to be the ones that go out and do that. So how can we do that? 3 ways I like to use all the time. 1, history surrounds us. John referenced this, right? It's here, present with us now. It's in our buildings. It's in our landscape. It's in the people that make up our communities. It's in the time that we lived in. It's in the time of the past. So it's all around us. And taking the time to spend and actually just recognize where that history is, I think is a big thing. And weeks like this week help us to recognize that history is surrounding us all the time. And I really encourage you to look at that because it's in the people too, right? It's not just in physical objects. It's just not in written papers. And it's not just in the story. The second piece I'll leave you with is now once you recognize that history, how can you be empowered by history? And it's not just about understanding and listening to the stories, but it's using the methods of history, of making that understanding. It helps strengthen us. It gives us empowerment to be more empathetic to our fellow communities. It gives us the way to be more critical and understanding of the material in front of us and the issues in front of us. And then it helps to propel us to future solutions and going forth and working with others. So I think it's really important to understand that history is not just about understanding stories, but it's about empowering us to make decisions, to make progress towards the future. And the third thing I will leave you with is don't forget history unites us. At its basic core, history is very local, right? We're a very local, public history is a very local piece for us. It happens with our families. Our family history is important. It happens with our communities. It happens with our Commonwealth, and it happens with our nation, our country, and the world. But when you look at it, we weave all these histories together, and it brings us all closer into understanding one another. I would butcher if I tried to do Wendell Berry's quote right now, but I'm going to leave you with the idea that Wendell was saying that if we don't understand, if we forget each other's stories, if we don't preserve these stories and make sure we have the ability to understand them, we lose trust in one another. And moreover, we begin to fear one another. And I think you all would agree with me, now is a time that we need to make sure that we are investing in history, that we are, and I can go on with this one for a long time about investment in history. I think it's a great thing, Judge, that you're talking about is it's not just preserving the structures, but civics education and Kentucky history education should be at the forefront of what we're thinking about. And by investing in that and understanding one another, we gain trust in one another. And right now, I think we can all agree that we have a little bit of skepticism and mistrust about things that are going on. We can use history to help bring that back together. So thank you all very much for bringing the Historical Society into this. We are a proud member of the Frankfort community, and I appreciate all that you do to make today possible.
Thank you, Mr. Alvey. We greatly appreciate your support this week. And now to the awards. People often ask about the relevance of the symbol the trust uses in our logo seal. I'd like Director Eric Whisman to come up and give a brief explanation of the symbolism behind the awards. Eric is also the president of the Kentucky Trust for Historic Preservation and will be sitting in for Betsy Hatfield, who had a last-minute family emergency come up. Our thoughts are with Betsy as she also lost her father 2 weeks ago. Eric.
Thanks, John. You know, as Scott was just saying, we all understand history, and often it's a misnomer or a misunderstanding that history and historic preservation are the same field. But what divides the two really is the tangible link that are the historic structures that need continuous and ever maintenance. Unlike history that stands with us usually forever, unless we're talking about material culture, the buildings, if we want to preserve our local history, our unique history, our places, just like those that John mentioned all around us, take continual effort. And that's part of the reason we decided 5 years ago now to begin our Historic Preservation Awards in name of our founder, Mrs. Martha Moore. Since that time, we've given out, this will make, I think, 26 awards this year, and we're very proud to continue this legacy for those that are making qualified and intentional investments to preserve places that are important to all of us in our community and beyond. I'm also very proud, and I want to ask everyone if you would give John a round of applause for John and I envisioned this Heritage Week and later Founders Day, and we tasked Mrs. Bierenberg's new position to do it, but I think it was a little much for day 100 now in your position, so glad that we have taken this on and ran with it, and I am more proud that Frankfort is now, for the first time in this field, a leader. We've been recognized beyond the state for taking an active role in how we can use heritage as the foundations of our future. And you know, I've dedicated much of my life and my career to preservation, and we need to look no further than one of our recipients tonight, Buffalo Trace Distillery, to see how these historic places combined with history can be the veritable building blocks of the future of our community. Without the history embodied in the place just down the river, we would not have the economic impact that is benefiting our community now. So I wanted to give everyone a little description. You all see this plaque around town on some of the homes, but you may not know or understand the symbolism behind it. We came up with this logo a couple of years ago that we wanted to represent Frankfort in all of its senses. So if you go to the old Capitol building downtown here and look up in the very top of the dome, you'll see some ornamental plaster work, and that symbol is in the top of the dome. It's called an Emethian. He starts to speak. It's called an Emethian symbol, which is a Greek revival symbol of prosperity of wealth. You'd see it all over Greece, and if you start to look across Frankfort, you'll see this symbol drawn, whether it's on iron fences or ornamental plasterwork or other things. The ornamental plasterwork that was created at the old Capitol was done by a gentleman named Henry Mordecai, who was a freed man of color in the 1820s, who I have to think had some thought about the symbolism that he was creating in the plasterwork in the Capitol building. So, given that it is in the Capitol building, this plasterwork representing the history of our place, and sort of representing the Greek revival style of architecture that is now synonymous with historic municipal buildings, especially the Capitol and otherwise. And given that Frankfort is the state capital, we thought the symbol, for all of its history and sort of its unknown meaning, if you will, was unique and representative of the trust. We made it our symbol, looking for prosperity and wealth and future preservation initiatives. So, with that said, I will begin our preservation awards. We have 5 tonight that we're anxious to give out. Hopefully that's the last siren there for a moment. We'll start with the Penn Marshall House. If you look in your programs, I'm kind of going up. Built of Kentucky marble or limestone between 1810 and 1820 by Charles Penn, who came to Kentucky during the period from Ferndale County, Maryland, by way of Bourbon County. The house is representative of one of the earliest forms of houses in Kentucky utilizing native surface stone for its construction. The solid stone walls are 2 feet thick and stands as built all these years later. Next, we have a house that most of South Frankfort's very familiar with, 301 Shelby Street. Nathan and Kyra Daly's house is a contributing structure to the South Frankfort neighborhood and Shelby Street in the South Frankfort Historic District. However, in recent years, neighbors would have considered it more of a blight to the landscape. For more than 2 decades, the Victorian house sat in an estate and consistently met the bare minimum in terms of money, craftsmanship, and investment to remedy its numerous and recurring violations of property maintenance codes. The house was converted into a duplex in the early 20th century and saw a slew of rental tenants over the years. Fortunately, the interior condition had been retained, the bulk of its historic finishes, and its charming character caught the attention of Nathan, the local real estate investor. They returned the house to a home and made it an eye-catching addition to the neighborhood. And for these efforts, we want to present them and we're pleased to present the Martha Moore Award for Historic Preservation. One of our members get a good photo.
Thank you guys.
Would you like to say anything?
Sorry, all I'll say is Nathan didn't know what he was getting into when he showed me this house. And it was definitely a sore eye. So I'm thankful for everybody that helped us turn it into a beautiful home. So thank you guys.
Okay, thank you all. For our next award, many of you know this property. Garden Hall is a Georgian Revival style brick home built in 1913. It stands on the prominent corner in the corner of Celebrities neighborhood at the corner of Wapping and Wilkerson. Louisville architects D.X. Murphy designed this home, who were noted for their design of Churchill Downs twin spires. The home was originally built for the founder, owner, and editor of the State of Frankfort News, now known as the State Journal. And over the years, it's been home to artist Paul Sawyer, Judge Henry Meigs and his wife Sally, one of the founders of the preservation movement in Kentucky, and daughter of Governor Simeon and Ida Lee Willis. Its expansive lot boasts formal gardens, hence the name likely, that owners Rich and Anne Marie Rosen have devoted a large part of all kinds of varieties of lilies. Walk by in the fall during bulb dividing season, you may see some extras on the wall that you can take with you. The Rosens have given the historic home their careful attention, and for that, we're pleased to present them the Martha Moore Award for Historic Preservation.
Send a message from my wife Anne Marie, who regrets that she was not able to be here tonight. She hopes to be back from Minnesota. Her 98-year-old mother is in Fort Knowles. She was planning on being back by now, but has not been able to return yet due to complications. But we both thank you very much.
And if our award winners don't mind to just stick around for a little bit, we'll get a group photo before we end. Our next award is for stewardship for Schweitzer Bridge. Originally constructed around 1855, the wooden covered bridge that spans the North Elkhorn Creek near Schweitzer in eastern Franklin County. Frankfort was once the covered bridge capital of Kentucky, with more than 33 covered bridges that were built in the county during their period of history. But now only one remains, Schweitzer. Standing on original stone piers at a length of 120 feet, 11 feet wide, was built in the Howe Truss configuration with saw tube edging over the overhead entrance. Two critical events in the bridge's history and countless other personal memories of driving over it, fishing off of it, hiding in it, and the list goes on, secured place in the hearts of Franklin County residents and a place in our history. In 1952, the Kentucky Highway State Department planned to replace the bridge with a new concrete structure. Locals and Magistrate Harold Cunningham, in particular, rallied to save the bridge, and ultimately the state altered their plans and constructed a new span adjacent to the covered bridge, which is there today, which was completed in 1954. The covered bridge was then closed to vehicular traffic and was transferred to the stewardship of Kentucky State Parks. Undoubtedly, the bridge underwent repairs and improvements over the course of its 150 years. However, a tremendous flood in the spring of 1997 pulled the bridge from its foundation and destroyed the historic bridge. Again, the community came together and rebuilt the beloved bridge later that year. The structure is well on its way to being categorized historic once again, and we're pleased to present the Kentucky State Parks with the Martha Moore Award for Historic Preservation for stewardship of this local important landmark, one of only 11 that now exist. 2 years ago we had 13, so critical how important this bridge is and its preservation to our community. And I will ask Mr. Lincoln Farmer, who is the Facilities Director for the State Parks Department, to come up and accept the award with Martha Moore.
You don't have to. I'm a lifelong resident of Frankfort. My wife told me to South Frankfort. So I applaud an effort so much to this community. And on behalf of Kentucky State Parks, I appreciate the recognition of our historic state residents. Thank you.
And you, if you're local, you can install that on the bridge if you'd like to, or we will for you. We need to feel fortunate, especially for these sites like that. I'll go off the script for a moment. In the 50s, these covered bridges were not valued in Kentucky, and we were #1 in the nation for the construction of these sites. And we just lost a critical one in Washington County that was treasured by the community as a destination that contributed to their tourism efforts. And our Jen Williamson, while she was architect of the state, helped renovate that property entirely just a few years ago, but local arsonists unfortunately have taken that one from us, so we really have a valued treasure. And our final award is for Buffalo Trace. Located on the Kentucky River near the 1775 settlement of Leestown, the distillery that calls Frankfort home has existed on the same site for over 200 years. The oldest building on the site is the stone house, the old Taylor Stone House, which likely dates to the 1780s, though sources are scarce to confirm the state of construction. The first warehouse was built on the river in 1811, which provided storage for various goods, including bourbon whiskey. The first distillery was operated on the property by 1858. The facility was purchased by Colonel E.H. Taylor and became the OFC Distillery, an acronym of sorts for old-fashioned wood-fired copper stills, in 1870. Obviously, many of us know about that for the Bourbon Pompeii tour that is so popular now, again, giving credence to the ability to build on the foundations of the past. Colonel Taylor built a new distillery at the site in 1872. The distillery complex was expanded, burned, flooded, rebuilt, and improved upon continuously over the next 150 years. Purchased in 1992 by Sazerac Company, the complex was rechristened Buffalo Trace Distillery in 1999. It is one of only 4 distilleries that continued production during Prohibition. It has been awarded the Distillery of the Year by Whiskey Distillery, I did not write these, of the Year in America. However, we're here today to celebrate its recognition as a National Historic Landmark, one of only 32 in the state of Kentucky, and our most recent National Historic Landmark. And if no one knows the difference between National Historic and the National Register of Historic Places, these step above historic sites really have a credence or a history that's important not only to us as a state, but the nation as a whole, and to the development patterns of the nation. Also, for their thoughtful rehabilitation of the 1780 stone house, which now serves as chemistry lab and interpretive history center, as well as exhibiting artifacts from the grounds. All of these accolades are a testament to the stewardship of Buffalo Trace and the important fixture, as an important fixture of Frankfort's landscape. For that, we're pleased to present Buffalo Trace Distillery, specifically for the Old Taylor House and the entirety of the distillery complex, the Martha Morrow Award for Historic Preservation for Stewardship. And here to accept the award is Mrs. Carrie Birch.
Unfortunately, my colleague Dennis Walsh was our home place manager and honestly the best advocate and steward for our brand standards and also all of our standards with the National Historic Landmark status, who could not be here. So I am just humbly accepting this on his behalf because he works really, really hard to make Buffalo Trace what we consider to be the best distillery, not just in the state, but probably in the country. So we're very proud. Thank you so much.
It's very exciting. In 2014, our trust celebrated a milestone, our 50th anniversary, and we held an event at Lynn Willis House, which would not be standing if not for Martha and her efforts with our initial founders. But Buffalo Trace attended that reception to announce that they were going to be working on the Old Taylor Stone House. And you all have come a long way in 6 years and done a lot of work, so we thank you all for investing in our community. So with that, I will ask John to come back up and finish that ceremony.
Thank you, Eric, and congratulations to all the award recipients. Can we give them all one more big round of applause? In closing tonight, I want to say one last thank you to, one, the board of the Franklin County Trust for all of the amazing work that we do. Two, all of the members of the trust who support us in our work. Number three, all of the Frankfort Heritage Week organizers for pulling off an amazing week of history and preservation programming. Four, to the history and preservation professionals who do what you do every day, educating the public and preserving history for future generations. And lastly, to the public who support us, thank you, and thanks to everyone for coming out tonight. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge what Judge Wells did earlier, that our treasured city historian Russ Hatter is retiring in just a few weeks. Can we give Russ Hatter one more big round of applause?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be a good president if I didn't do a little plug for the trust. We are a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization, so as the fiscal year ends and some of you need to offset some tax liability, or just if you just support the work that we do, we would certainly appreciate donations to the trust. Memberships for individuals are $35, and for 2 adults, the family membership is $60. You can make checks payable to the Franklin County Trust for Historic Preservation and give them to either myself or Jen Williamson, our treasurer. And if you don't have your checkbook on you tonight, you can donate from our website via PayPal at www.fcthp.org. Once again, that's www.fcthp.org. And if you sign up before the end of the month, National Historic Preservation Month, so what is May 31st? Monday? Is that Monday? Okay. Sign up before Monday, you get your free t-shirt because that's the end of that. And please remember, there is an informal mix and mingle at Siglosia Brewery immediately after this from 7 to 10, and we hope to see you there. And without further ado, I ask for a motion of the board to adjourn the annual spring meeting of the Franklin County Trust for Historic Preservation and the first Frankfort Heritage Week ceremony. I moved by Kevin Breek and seconded by Eric Whisman. And all in favor say aye. Aye. The motion carries and we are adjourned at 7:08 p.m. Thanks again, everyone, for coming out. We really appreciate it.